You are listening to the Stop Binge Eating podcast with Kirsten Sarfty, episode number 105. Welcome to the Stop Binge Eating podcast. It's time for you to end your food obsession and begin feeling confident and in control around food. You are absolutely capable of eliminating binge eating from your life, and I'm going to show you how by giving you simple tools and insights that you can apply in your own life. I'm your host, Kirsten Sarfty. Now let's get to it. Hi, I am so excited to bring onto the podcast another one of my former clients today. Her name is Sadie. She's originally from New Zealand, which is so fun, and she's amazing. This woman really showed up for herself while we were working together, and you'll hear all about it during our conversation. So without further ado, here's me and Sadie talking about her binge eating story. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. It's great to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. So to start off, just tell us all a little about yourself, your background with eating and food and your weight, just all of the things.
Sure. So I'm 34 years old and I am a Kiwi, if you can hear my accent, but I actually live in London, UK now. And I moved over here to start my own business and I was working on that. Binging happened in all of that time, which we will get into. So my binging story is that I was binging for around about 7 years. And if I look, I started at about 58 kilos, which is 127 pounds. But from the binging, my weight got up to 160 pounds. So that's 73 kilos in the space of that time. And yeah, then I came and did coaching with you. Things have changed. And now I'm at about 67 kilos going down. So that's 147 pounds. And I'm aiming to get to about 60, which is, my happy weight. So that's 132. Yeah. So I'm glad things are going in that direction.
Yes. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what life was like while you were binging. Why was it a problem for you? How was it affecting your life?
Oof, what a problem it was. So binging really got bad for me for about 7 years. And it started off with just comfort eating it a little bit more in some places, and it turned into something horrible. So it would happen about at least once a week, pretty much throughout those years. Like this pressure would build up and then I would have a big binge. Sometimes I had binges where I would go out intentionally and buy a bunch of food knowing I was doing that. Other times it was just this constant eating and feeling like I just had to keep eating. When it got really bad was when I was traveling for work and I was out of control eating everything in the minibar, which was just awful. But other times it would just be stress would build up. And then if it was a particularly stressful time, maybe I'd be binging every day. So I could be just constantly grazing throughout those days. And by the end of the day, feeling really awful, beating myself up, going online, Googling what emotional eating was. How the heck do you stop this? Okay, I just need to be more disciplined was what I was trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said stress was a big factor for you. Is that what led to a lot of your binges, would you say?
Yeah, I think stress and difficult emotions. So I would, if it was a stressful time, my go-to was sort of eat something first. It'll feel a bit better. I don't think I was so consciously thinking about it, but it's like, this thing I have to do, I don't want to do it. If I eat, it feels a bit better. Well, that felt good. So let's do it again in an hour and another hour. And then you realize you've eaten several meals and you haven't even had meal time. And it would carry on like that.
Yeah. So it's originally just, I want to feel better, get the relief from the stress. And then it just keeps continuing and continuing, looking for more relief from the stress, right? And did it make the stress go away?
No, no. I mean, that was the crazy thing about being stuck in that cycle was it would feel good momentarily, but even while I was doing it at the back of my head, I was like, I know how this is going to end at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I'm feeling ill. I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling disappointed. Maybe the thing I was trying to do got done or didn't. I'm still feeling stressed. So no, it didn't work. And the most frustrating thing was when I could see that was happening. but just could not stop doing it.
Yeah. Did you believe it was possible to stop?
I did. I knew it was. Did I believe it? I don't know if I really believed it for a long time. But then I heard other people had done this. Like I had heard from you talking about it. But long before that, I heard other people would write articles where they talk about how they'd managed to stop. So I knew people had said they'd done it. But I think deep down, because it kept happening and I was reading the things and finding out the information, it was still happening. It was like, I just don't really know how this is going to stop. I know it's possible, but maybe not for me, was what I guess I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. A lot of people say that. They're like, oh, I hear that you have done it and I read all these stories. And that gives them a little bit of possibility. But why do you think you thought that you wouldn't be able to do it? Why did you think that you were the special case?
Because I so badly didn't want to be doing it, and then I would keep doing it. But the how it would feel afterwards was so awful. And as my weight was getting bigger, and I was just feeling, I was feeling worse about myself, not just because the weight was higher, but because I knew why it was higher. I knew it was from the binging. Um, and so it just seemed like, well, I already know that this is related to stress. I know it's related to emotions, but why can't I stop? So because I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. Was there?
Well, the good news is I don't do that anymore. So on the bright side, I don't do that anymore. So I mean, I've learned that no, there absolutely wasn't something wrong with me. I didn't have what I needed to be able to put into action what I needed to do. So no, there's not something wrong with me. I mean, thinking back to it now, it's kind of weird reflecting on what was happening because my life is just so different.
Mhm. Yeah, but that happens to so many people. They're like, "Oh no, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me," right? And it's just that
Yeah.
you just don't know how. And people get
Yeah.
caught up in the same thing that you did. It's like, I really want it, and I
Yeah.
understand where it's coming from, but you just don't have the tools, or you don't know how to apply it, or there's something standing in your way that you just don't know what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and so much of the advice would be like, do things to be less stressed. So it's like de-stress your life. And I was like, well, but I run my own business. I mean, my life is stressful at times. Like it's just gonna be. I can't. There's only so much that I can remove. Or it was like, go and take a nice bath. I was like, I don't have the time to take 5 baths a day because that's how many times I'm wanting to. Like this is not working for me. So I couldn't use that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, why did you decide to reach out for coaching when you did?
Well, I think when I was hearing the podcast, it really spoke to me because I could hear from the episodes, you knew what I was going through. Like the amount of different things you would say, I'd be like, that I've lived, that goes through my head, that is why I'm doing it. It was sometimes like I would hear my thoughts for the first time because you were voicing them. And you said you did this. And you said you weren't doing this anymore. And I thought, she really seems to know what she's talking about. And I demolished the podcast and I had nowhere to go. And I just thought, maybe it's time that I actually give this a go. It didn't seem to be coming from a place that, like, it didn't seem so risky because I just heard in your words that you knew the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you were really committed. Like, you were extremely committed. Like, you're like, "Okay, by this day, I wanna be doing this. I wanna be making these changes," right? Like, you were really thinking forward to the person that you wanted to be at certain points in the program.
Yeah.
Why do
Well,
you
I
think you were so committed to
Well,
this?
I think I remember in one of our first conversations, like when I first got to talk to you, and I was just asking questions about what it would be like. So, if I sign up for this, what's it going to be like? And then you started talking about some things. I was like, yeah, you seem to know what I'm going through. But then I said, is this possible to stop? And you said, yes. And I was, it's like, really? And then I just felt, okay, she says it is. I'm going to just listen to everything she tells me to do. And I thought, I don't know, I really felt supported by that. And I thought, you're saying it's possible. You're saying in the podcast episodes the things that I relate to. Is like, what if I just really trust it? And also, I committed the money. So I think that's a really helpful thing. It was a bigger commitment than I'd made to this in other ways. And so then all of a sudden it's like, what do I want to get out of this experience? And I knew it was up to me. And it did get quite difficult in the middle. I think about halfway, I was thinking, I haven't really made the progress I wanted. I'm still mucking around with some things that we've gone over. And then I think there was a turning point for me where I realized I have to do what I want to get what I want out of this. And so I just buckled down. I was like, I'm going full throttle. I'm going to commit to everything, follow all of the things to a T. And then, of course, the results started to happen. I just needed to get in and do the work.
Yes. And I love what you said in the middle was when it started to get hard. You started to question yourself. And this is why I do it the way I do it, because people question the length of the program, the amount of the investment in the program, and they're like, "Oh, can I just try it out?" Or, they're concerned about making that kind of investment in themselves. And I'm like, this is what keeps you going.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it was like $1 and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, we'll just talk whenever you feel like it, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe I'll see you again." You would have just quit when it was hard. This is what we do when we're
Yeah.
on our own. We don't have skin in the game. We haven't invested in something.
Yeah, completely. And I think that really helped in the middle too, because I was like, the end point is coming. And it wasn't, I was getting what I needed. It was just how am I applying that during the week? And then if I kept doing the same thing, I was like, why am I not doing the other thing? And then that'd be the kind of thing you discuss. Well, why didn't you? And like, oh, okay, now we're actually going to address that. But I was really lucky with the timing, I think, because lots of my stuff lots of my binging would come up in stressful situations, and because of the time of year that we did sessions, I got to go to all these places that my most stressful stuff happens. So I used to run an event in Thailand every year. I was in there for one of the weeks. I was like, I'm so stressed. So I got to deal with all of the tools live, and then I went home to visit my family, and all these things come up when you go to your home and you visit your family. So again, I was like, well, now I'm getting to use these tools in action. So I was very lucky in that way, but it did mean I was working really hard because I
Yeah.
had all the excuses. And then because I had the coaching to support me, suddenly the excuses they weren't so good. Like they didn't have so much power over me. And I was thinking, if I can not be doing this in these circumstances, nothing can stop me.
Yes, and I want everybody to hear that. While you were in the program, you were traveling
Hmm.
all over the world, and you
Yeah.
still showed up and you still did the work. Because people always say, "Oh, I want to wait till it's the right time," or "I have this going on or that going on." And it's like life doesn't really slow down. We wait for
Yeah.
it, but it doesn't.
I ended up doing the program through some of the most busy months of my life, and I still made it work, and I'm so grateful for that. I just had enough, and when it came time to sign up, I remember you asking me at the time of committing as well. You said, "What if this could end your binging forever?" And just that thought, I just thought if this actually could do that for me, that would be incredible, and it has. So I'm so glad I didn't muck around waiting for the right time, because I would have lost all of this time now. And I've gone through COVID without having this pressure over me, And I'm thinking, wow, what would my life have been like if I hadn't done this work?
Yes, absolutely. So, what did you find to be the most challenging part of this work?
Being with what I would call the withdrawal, because you realize you're using your binging to avoid things. You're avoiding things you find difficult, and then you're gonna have to deal with them because they exist in life. Um, it's not possible to go through just expecting everything to be perfect in order to not binge. But there was a time I didn't used to binge. So I used to be able to deal with my problems differently, which reminded me I could learn to do it differently. So kind of the bywash of all of that came up, that was hard, because all of a sudden I realized if I didn't want to have that as my go-to and my relief, I needed to find a new way to do things, which meant I had to deal with the stuff I'd been avoiding.
And there were lots of emotions that came up for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, I was very lucky, because I think one of the things I would have trouble with was my anxieties that would come up. And there was a session that I was just so anxious. So I actually got to work that through I saw how hard it was to receive some of that information, because in my head I'm like, yeah, but binging's easy. But I just when you're being coached, you know that no one's stopping you from doing what you're doing, but you know that every session that you're coming to, you're going to talk about whatever's been going on. You can't, because you've got an accountability time to come and look at it, you can't like leave it in that denial space anymore,
Hmm.
because you've committed to talking about it. And I was like, well, how do I want to be talking about this next week, is what would come up for me each time. I'd be like, what type of conversation do I want to be having? And that meant when it got difficult, when that anxiety came up, when I felt overwhelmed, I needed to practice doing something with it now, where I'm never going to get to that point I can do things differently.
Hmm. Yes. So, what do you think was the biggest shift for you that like really solidified this no more binging thing?
Oh my God. My ability to, oh, this makes me so happy to think about, but my ability to trust myself is incredible, because I am there for myself through everything. And the most amazing thing about this process has been how I came talking about food. And by the final sessions, I wasn't even talking about food very much, because suddenly when I did the work, I was like, oh, I don't really binge anymore. That thing's not really a problem. And I remember I told you how I had a big problem with peanut butter. I used to eat peanut butter by the
Yes.
spoon all the time. And I was like, it wasn't a binge. Like, my binges had stopped being the big ones anyway, but it was just this little like picking at things. And then I'd be like, Kirsten, I've had a jar in my house for weeks, and like, who cares? I'm not even noticing. And that was amazing. And so then the thing was, all the stuff I'd been avoiding, I actually got to start to deal with through coaching, because the coaching isn't just about the binging is just one symptom of something deeper that's going on. And you realize, when you're not having to spend this energy and this time worrying and fretting and beating yourself up for all of that, there's all this energy that can go into other things. And all of a sudden I was getting to talk about other things I wanted to deal with, and my life was just shifting in a really amazing way.
So, what kind of changes have you made since then?
So many. Um, so, I mean, I talked about not being happy with some things I was doing work wise, and I wanted to make some really big shifts, but I was very nervous about it because of my situation with where I was living. And you were helping me to talk through different things about questioning the beliefs I was having that were limiting me in that regard. And I started to get really courageous from this. And I've actually, since then, I have totally left the work I was doing, which felt just impossible to even imagine before. And I'm actually training to be a coach as well, because my life has been
Yay!
transformed so much by this process. I am seeing myself actively work to get really, really fit. Like, I'm exercising 6 times a week, which is just something I never used to do before. I'm getting rest, which is something I never used to do before. My relationships with other people have been enriched. I'm being courageous in so many things that I didn't imagine doing. I actually can't believe, I feel like I'm not doing justice at all to how big the change has been, but it's been incredible. I feel courageous about setting big goals and just knowing I will take the steps in order to achieve them. And I just feel like I can do anything at this stage if I really want to. It's amazing.
Yes, right? You tackled this. What else can you
Yeah,
do, right? So, one thing you did mention in there was resting. Now,
yeah,
you are a very productive person.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of your main goals in us working together was to put your own self care first.
Yeah.
You had a hard time slowing down and taking time for yourself. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think I didn't like to deal with the feelings left behind, honestly. I think what I learned through coaching was how much my avoidance of the feelings, it wasn't even just in the food, it was in like workaholism, other ways that I would just try and avoid it. I would just numb out by doing other things as well. So binging was actually just one little segment that was causing me a lot of pain, but it was one segment of a bigger picture. And I started to see how much I didn't like to be in the space of not having much to do, because all that those feelings would come up. But when I stopped being so afraid of them, I saw as well that resting was an important important key in my binging cycle, because actually what her food had become was not just an avoidance of stress, but it was also something I was using for entertainment, for relief, because I was doing so many things that was pretty much the thing I slotted in for pleasure. And so I was pouring all of this energy into the food without realizing it, and it was representing so much. So actually the cool thing about going through coaching was realizing some of my self-care was about learning to be okay with watching a movie without having any guilt. And I was like, what kind of homework is this? I don't understand. Like learning to take rest, learning to tell myself that it's okay not to work every single day of the week. And as I started to do that, the interest in food also lessened, and I also got to come to terms with the things I'd been avoiding. And yeah, it all came together really nicely.
So, how do you feel about food now?
Oh, so it's such a funny question to consider now. It just doesn't bother me in the same way at all. I keep things in the freezer. I have leftovers in the fridge. It's not a big deal. I'm also wanting to lose some weight at the moment, so because I'm still working on that. But it's also not a big deal about fretting about when that's going to happen, because I don't have this anxiety around the food. So I know if I just follow the plan I've made, it just comes together. Sometimes I have moments that I've definitely overeaten, and I just sort of thought, well, that was not very nice, but it's very minor. It's more like a little ripple of an experience, and you just look back and go, I didn't need that second helping. Honestly, most of the time I eat a meal, I might notice a little bit of an urge to keep eating at the end, but it's like this thing I just noticed, and I'm like, I know what that is. I'm actually all good. And within 10 minutes, I'm not even thinking about it again. And
Yeah.
but I enjoy food too. It's not this thing that has just become this thing I'm totally indifferent to. I love cooking. I love making nutritious meals, but it's coming from such a different space because it's not tied up with that guilt and all that those feelings of feeling down on myself. All of that's been cleared away. So it's a lovely thing that's there, but it's not the be all and end all. It
Yeah.
feels like a nice thing that happens a couple of times a day, and then the rest of the day I'm doing other things, not concerned.
Yeah. Right? Like food is just
Yeah,
kind of a thing that you do, which sometimes, is for pleasure, right? Like
yeah, of course.
let's enjoy some peanut butter sometimes. I
Yeah,
mean,
of course, of
how
course.
is the relationship with peanut butter these days?
Well, that is so nice, because I remember when we talked about that at one point, and you were saying, well, what would you like your relationship to be like? And I said, I just want to be normal. But what would normal be is just having some and then leaving it. That was it. I just didn't want to have the urge to have 5, 6, 7 tablespoons, and before you know it, the jar's gone in 2 days. And sure enough, that's what I have, is that I could just have a little bit here or there, but I also can just leave it. I'm not rushing out to get some more, and the jar lasts for ages. So it's not the highlight of my day anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you still desire it though, right? There still is a desire there, but is it the same desire that was there before?
No, no. I mean, what I if there's something I would want people to know about having gone through this process, is that when I started, I sort of imagined more that not having those strong urges would mean that I was not like being really disciplined. So if I thought about food, what would happen with coaching and stuff is that I would just be really good at saying no. But actually, the reality is it's way easier than that. What happens is the urges just die down. The Anytime that I get a little bit of an urge, it never has the same intensity as it used to have, because I've stopped that cycle of feeding into it. So I used to imagine my urges. I like the image of a wave. So you can sort of sense it coming up, and it gets really, really, really strong. And then, of course, what happens with a wave is that it would wash and after the peak. But what I would do is whenever it would get really strong, I would eat them and I would break. And that's what would happen every time. Whereas once I've actually learned how to be with urges and not give in to them and feed the cycle, they're no longer big tidal waves anyway. They're like little ripples that just, I might just get a little sensation, oh, food, and then it's really not this thing that I'm having a battle with anymore. The battle is gone because I've practiced so much. I know though as well, it could come back if I carried on that behavior. So what I get to see is that it just depends what you're feeding into it. if I were to start binging over several weeks, of course I'd make that result again. Of course. But the great thing is to realize from this process, you can very quickly undo any of that by just not feeding into it. And then they don't come and tap on your shoulder all the time, those urges.
Yeah, so way less intense. They're still there though. And I ask that because people have this idea that like they're just never going to think about food, right? That they're just not going
No.
to desire this stuff. And they ask me all the time, do you still feel urges? Do you still feel desire? And I say exactly what you just said, but in my own
Yeah.
words. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, the urge to binge is not there, but the desire to overeat or eat off my plan is still there, but I know how to
Yeah.
handle it. And that's
And there's
really the
no
goal,
torment. Yeah,
right?
torment is what is gone. And the beautiful thing, like when I used to say I want to eat like a normal person, what that meant was when I want to eat something, just eat a little bit or eat it in a certain like a regular portion. And what happens now is if I have an urge to eat something, I might be like, great, I'm going to eat that for dinner, or I'm going to eat that tomorrow. And it's the problem with binging was not, it was that I wanted all the food all at once. Like the whole thing with the urgency, the only thing that stands between you and the food you want is time. And the binges come because it's like I cannot tolerate any time in between these things. Whereas actually when you learn to have a normal relationship again, you can have the things you want, but you're not having to have them all at once in one meal. You can have them dinner the next day, the next week, so you spread it out, have it like a regular person. And then if there's a regular person relationship with food, but what I imagine a normal person would be like, and you don't have all the consequences that come with it.
Yes. Yes. So you mentioned that you still have some weight that you want to lose. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about your body now?
Well, I feel so much more loving towards it. I mean, I want to lose some weight, but the good thing is I haven't lost a massive number, but I've also been working out like I'm with consistency I never had before. So actually, I don't even think the weight really reflects the amazing amount of changes that have happened. I never liked to run, and here I am running 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time. And this is because of the process I've gone through and how I've been learning to stick by my commitments to myself. So it just bleeds out into all these other areas of my life. But in general, I'm not feeling that desperation to lose it all at once because I know it will happen as it's meant to. But I also I feel a little bit of what I feel a little bit of guilt for right now is because I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I just reflect on all the way I was treating my body when I was binging. It's a serious problem to eat in that way. It's also just I feel I feel sorry for the way I treated my emotions as well. Because underneath everything, I just had normal feelings and I was making them because I felt that they were so wrong. I wasn't giving myself the emotional nurturing that I needed. But as I'm learning to do that, it's just paying back in the greatest way. Like to learn to show myself the self-love is worth every cent because that's the thing that's really been changing my life. So I feel a lot more supportive of my body. I feel a lot more I'm sorry for the things I did, and I'm glad I get to make up for the way I treat it now by not beating up on it, by celebrating it for what it can do, by nourishing it, by letting my emotions be felt, um, and just really giving thanks for all the amazing things it does for me in my life.
Ugh, I love that. And that's really what self love and love for your body does for you. When you love something, you take care of it,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
and I love that I can trust I take care of it because when I was binging, the thing that would happen would I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be that thought like, is it gonna happen or isn't it? Will it happen today? Am I gonna live that again? And that dread, whereas it doesn't even occur to me these days. I don't have to wake up and think about that. I know it's not gonna happen.
Yes. Oh, look at that confidence that you have.
Yeah, it's amazing now.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who has been binging for as long as you were, as often
Mhm.
as you were, and had also has a lot of doubts about whether they'd be able to stop too? What would you say to them?
It is possible. It really truly is. Um, but I would say it comes from trusting the process, which a lot of is about getting out of your thoughts in your head and getting into the actions, like what's blocking you from taking the actions. Because it's an amazing thing to look at. It's the most simple thing in the world. Don't put food in your mouth. How it's not, it doesn't need endless Googling or anything to understand what needs to happen to stop binging. But it is the most difficult thing. It's so difficult. Out of all the things I've achieved in my life, it's probably one of the most difficult things I've had to overcome, because there's so many things going on in there with our evolutionary drives, our emotions, dealing with the pressures of things. All of that stuff is in there, driving us to think this is a good idea in the moment. But it absolutely is possible if you trust the process, do the work, look at the actions, stop overthinking it. Stop overthinking. Don't think you're the only person that couldn't do it. It's just your brain. You're just learning to not constantly put food in your mouth. That's all you've
Yeah.
got to learn.
Yes. Yes. So, any other words of wisdom that you would like to share that you have not shared already?
Um, I would say if I would say looking at our actions is the most important thing, because I think when I was going through this as well, when I was staying stuck in my head, that's also the place I was going, where I was judging myself for not making enough progress, worrying about what was going to happen in the future. Is this going to work out or not? And when I could actually focus on the actions I was taking, that is the process. The work is done in the actions. And the more that my brain is, I mean, one of the reasons that I think it's easier to not binge now is I'm spending less time in my mind with all the worries. So my mind is able to go to other places. And so the actions take care of them, care of themselves. So don't overthink it.
Mhm.
Focus on what you're doing and trust the process is what I'd say.
Yeah, and I think even what you said, like, there's just so much less worry in there.
Yeah.
So, you talk about focusing on the actions, but a lot of the work that we did was actually focusing on your thoughts, and we really worked
Yeah.
through your thoughts to make it easier for you to
Yeah.
do all that you've done, right? We get rid of all the crap in your head,
Yeah.
right? All of the thoughts and the beliefs that are just not serving you, so you can stop worrying. And with
Yeah,
less
exactly.
worry, comes less, like you said, less torment in your head. Am I gonna
Yes.
binge? Am I not? Like, let's just get rid of all of that and just get to work.
Yeah, I think that was the most important thing out of the coaching process, was just that I got the tools on how to deal with that, so that I wasn't just like blindly going through things. When the triggers would come up, I knew how to respond to them. I had the missing piece that I needed.
Yes. And I love that too. Like, you knew how to respond, because people people get so caught up. They're like, I need to be able to contact you when I'm feeling an urge. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you don't, because I'm going to teach you how to feel an urge, like how to go through it. So you're not relying on another person. You can rely on yourself. You get your tools, you know how to use them. Like you said, building that trust in
Yeah.
yourself so that
Yeah,
you
I
know that you
actually
can take care of you.
I think on that point, one really important thing I was just thinking about was the timing of my coaching I was also doing while I was traveling. But one thing was it clashed with a holiday. And because of that, there was like week that I wasn't seeing you. And that was really good, because it was around the time that I was like, if I'm gonna get anything out of this, I have to do it myself. And then I was like, well, I know that it's holiday time. So this is, and so I would think like, what can I show myself I can do on my own this week? I've got the tools. How can I put it into practice? So instead of looking at that break as like a problem, like I can't do this without this thing, I was trying to see it as an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to practice these things that we've worked on. And then I would think, what type of discussion do I want to be having at the next session? How do I want to be showing up? And I don't want to be getting up and talking about how I've failed at this again. I was like, I want to talk about how I've got over it. So I was like, what are the things I need to put in place?
Yes. Oh my gosh, so awesome. I love your story, and I am so happy to see that you are where you are right now. It's so amazing. Congratulations. You did it.
Thank you. Yeah, but I mean, I really do have to say thank you, Krista. Like it is one of the best things that I decided to do. Seriously, I just cannot believe how much this has helped me in so many aspects of my life. And when I asked about signing up, you said, "Yeah, what if you would stop binging forever?" And that really is feeling like a possibility. I'm not at forever yet, but
Yeah.
but it's not. It's just I can't believe when I reflect back now how those 7 years, how tormenting they were, and it feels like an old story. It's incredible how different my life is.
Yeah. And you may not be at forever yet, but what's so wonderful is the confidence that you have in your ability. And that's what it's all about. Like, let's say that, in 10 years from now, you do have a binge. Would it be that big of a deal, do you think?
No, because what used to happen was when I would have a binge, then I would go off for several days, and it would just be like, oh, it's too late, it's all over. I heard someone talk about this once, and they said it's like you're going on a drive to Florida, and then you take a detour to no, sorry, Florida. You're going on a drive across the country, but you take a detour to Florida to Disneyland, and you just keep going. He's like, and they're saying when you learn to have more mindfulness about what's going on, you can, instead of having a detour and going all the way to Disneyland, you can just go off the road and then turn back onto the road that you were going on. And that's
Yes.
what it seems like now. A little thing happens, like, oh, yesterday maybe I ate and that was definitely comfort eating. I go, that wasn't really needed. Why did I do that? Well, let's check out what was going on, and then I move on. And it
Yes.
doesn't, there's no longer this big fall off the wagon.
Exactly. So the confidence is there, the knowledge is there, you know how to apply it, you have your tools, you have everything that you
Yeah,
need.
it's amazing. It's really been amazing.
It's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with everybody. I'm sure that so many people are going to hear this and relate and feel some hope, feel some inspiration, feel so many feelings. I mean, I feel so many feelings just listening to you. It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
I really hope so. If anyone who's listening to this is really struggling, it was an amazing thing to go through. Even if you're trying to apply the things that you're hearing on Kristen's amazing podcast, yeah, keep sticking at it, because it truly is possible. And I'm just so glad to not have to continue that old story.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kirsten.
So, after we did our call, Sadie emailed me and told me that there was one more thing she wanted to add that she wished she had said. So, this is what she wrote to me. I've been thinking a lot about something I wish I'd said. For the question at the end about words of advice, what I would have said if I'd thought of it was to focus on one thing at a time and chipping away at the blocks one by one. It's easy to get overwhelmed thinking about all of the changes, but that helped me immensely to narrow my focus to mastering things piece by piece, which began to combine together and make everything easier as I built my skills. That was really important knowledge for me, so I thought I'd share it in case it's worth adding that in. You know what? I did think that it was worth adding it in. So there it is. So good, right? I just love hearing her insights and about how far she's come and the changes that she's made, not only with her eating, but in her whole life. So amazing. I love it so much. And if this is something that you want for yourself, if you want to change your eating and change your life, and you're ready to make an investment in yourself, you have to join me in my Stop Binge Eating group coaching program. It is the best binge eating program. My people are seeing fantastic results, and being in a group while you're doing this work not only makes it more fun, but you all learn so much from each other, and you get to do this work with people who get you and truly understand what you're going through. If you're ready to make some serious changes in yourself, go to coachker.com/mini to request your free mini session where you'll get all the details about how the group works, how I can help you, and see if we're a good fit for working together. I cannot wait to talk to you. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Stop Binge Eating podcast. If you like what you heard today and you want more, go to coachker.com/free. That's COACHKIR.com/free to get some awesome free stuff to help you stop binge eating.